Welcome back into the Door Report. I'm Billy Derrick, and I'm now happy to welcome into the podcast Mr. Mitchell Forde. He is a Missouri beat writer for PowerMizzou.com, and he is getting ready to cover Vanderbilt, Missouri coming up this Saturday. That is a 3 p.m. Eastern time kick on the SEC Network. Mitchell, thanks for coming on. How you doing?
I'm doing good, Billy. Thanks for having me.
I want to start with the injuries, Mitch, and coming into this game, I think that was something that everyone noticed was the Missouri injury list, and wide receiver Chance Looper, DB Sean Robinson, and defensive lineman Johnny Walker are all listed as doubtful on the injury report heading into Saturday's game. And there are also several players listed as questionable. So how much do you think those injuries could impact Missouri against Vanderbilt on Saturday?
I think it could have a bit of an impact. There's a couple areas that are definitely hit pretty hard, wide receiver and cornerback being those. At wide receiver, you've got Mookie Cooper listed as out. He's missed a couple of games, but I kind of thought he would be back after the bye. Like you said, Chance Looper is doubtful. Barrett Bannister is questionable. So they do have a good number of bodies at receiver, and their two leading receivers in Towski Dove and Kiki Chisholm should still be out there. So I don't think it's a huge deal, but something to keep an eye on. The bigger issue is definitely cornerback. You've got Ennis Rakestraw out for the year. He tore his ACL about 3 weeks ago. He was a starter, and he had been replaced by Ish Burdine, who is doubtful for this game, who had then been replaced by Ali Green, who is questionable for this game. And then Chris Abrams-Strain and Sean Robinson had both kind of been playing that nickelback position. Chris Abrams-Strain more of a third corner, Sean Robinson more of a safety / linebacker, but still they kind of played that same spot. So you definitely are going to, I'm not really sure who you're going to see out there at corner. I would assume true freshman DJ Jackson will play quite a bit and maybe start up opposite Tulsa transfer at Caleb Evans. I know Vanderbilt hasn't, thrown the ball with a ton of success, but Missouri's DBs that'll be out there Saturday will likely be of the reserve variety.
Gotcha. So let's go with quarterback Connor Bazelak now. And this Missouri offense, they've been putting up gargantuan numbers. It's been pretty ridiculous to look at what they've done offensively. So let's talk about Bazelak. What can Vandy fans know about him and some of what he's done this season? I know he has 7 interceptions. He's been sacked 7 times also. So I guess where's the barometer for him this season for Mizzou fans and what they've expected from him?
Yeah, it's interesting. The numbers are solid, and especially we're really solid early in the season, like you mentioned. There's been some people not super satisfied with how he's played, and I think a big part of that is just when the team loses, the quarterback's going to get blamed. And I really don't think Bazelak is in the top probably 4 or 5 or maybe even 10 issues on this team. I mean, the defense has been really bad, but he has struggled lately. And, when you go into a bye, I think he played probably his worst game of his Missouri career against Texas A&M, then heading into a bye to give people 2 weeks to talk about it. I think he's going to feel a little heat to come out and prove something this week. And Eli Drinkwitz even said, asked after the Texas A&M loss when Bazelak threw 2 picks and no touchdowns, he said, look, Connor's our guy. He gives us the best chance to win. Then this week on Tuesday, he said, Connor's our guy and we have faith that he'll get it turned around. But, we also have some competition there and we need to have other guys ready, just kind of letting them know like there is an end to the leash. So it's interesting. I do think Connor's been a little banged up and no one's been willing to admit that, but I mean, he's been walking around with a limp at times. He was solid last year. He started 8 games. He was SEC freshman of the year. Didn't throw a ton of touchdowns, but also didn't throw a ton of picks, pretty accurate. This year, he's been fine. He's struggled lately with the ball security. That's been the big thing. He's never been one to make a lot of, downfield throws, risky throws, stuff like that. He's not going to fit a ball into a window that makes your jaw drop, but his calling card had been knowing where to go with the ball and getting it there accurately. And when he struggled to do that, but then still hasn't been throwing the ball downfield much, I think his average depth of target last game was literally 5 yards, which is not very good. That's kind of where the frustration has come from.
You mentioned the Tigers defense and some of their struggles this season. They're giving up 286 rushing yards per game this season. What is it about the Tigers rush defense that you think has surrendered so many yards? And do you think on the flip side that Vanderbilt could have some success on the ground like a lot of teams have?
Yeah, I mean, frankly, I think it's a little bit of everything because it's not just been, tackling. It's not just been missed assignments. It's not just been players looking confused with the scheme. I mean, when you're giving up almost 300 rushing yards a game, it's pretty much everything. I think that they did have a new defensive coordinator come in, and Steve Wilkes, who did institute a new scheme. I'm sure there's been some confusion there. They did lose Nick Bolton, who is a starter in the NFL, and I think leading all rookies in tackles. I mean, like, that's a significant loss. He made everyone look better for sure. They lost a couple of defensive linemen, a couple safeties as well, who would have helped. But I also don't think this. I mean, like, we have this debate all the time, obviously, on the message board thing and stuff. Like, people are saying, it's just the talent. It's not just talent, because this is not the least talented run defense in the Power Five, but that's where it's stacking up statistically. So, I'm curious to see how it looks out of the bye. But yeah, I mean, like, I definitely think that Vanderbilt should have a chance to run on this defense, because literally everyone else has. I mean, SEMO, Southeast Missouri, was able to run for almost 300 yards. Granted, most of that did come against backups late in the game. That Mizzou had kind of taken its foot off the gas in that one, but still, I mean, it has given up rushing success to everyone. So yeah, I think until they prove otherwise, that Vanderbilt has a chance to replicate that.
Mitch, I want to go back to 2 years ago. Vanderbilt beat Missouri 21-14 in Nashville. But last season, the Tigers demolished Vanderbilt 41-0 in a crazy game where we saw the first woman in a college football game. But that game eventually resulted in Derek Mason being fired. So there was a lot going on in that one last season. But I think what it comes down to is Missouri was the last team Vanderbilt beat in the SEC. So how much of last season's result do you take into account when you look at this Saturday's matchup? Do you look at that and say, okay, Missouri is still outmatching Vanderbilt here, or do you see maybe some differences there between the 2 years?
Yeah, I mean, I don't take too much into account, because last year was crazy in every regard. The only thing, I mean, like, my way of looking at it is like, man, I watched that Vanderbilt team last year, and granted that, things were a little bit out of sorts in that game. Like you mentioned, I think it's, fair to question where the morale of that team was at. Yeah. But I was like, man, that was a bad team. And I think the talent has not gotten better, and maybe gotten a little worse since then. So, Mizzou, certainly it would be troublesome to lose this game. But no, I mean, I'm not drawing too many conclusions off of that per se. I definitely think that, I mean, I'd be stunned if it's not closer than 41-0. I think Vanderbilt will be able to score some points on this defense. So yeah, that's about the extent of it.
Gotcha. So when Coach Drinkwitz puts in the Vandy film, we just touched a little bit on Vandy. Who are some of the players that you think could cause some problems for Missouri? Because you look at Vanderbilt and you look at Missouri, there's a big difference between the offensive production there. But in terms of some of those guys, who do you think are some of those players that can make an impact?
Yeah, obviously I've not, watched any film of Vanderbilt or anything like that, but just look at their numbers and stuff. I mean, I know that, Mike Wright is maybe not considered quite as much of a passing threat as Ken Seals, although their numbers through the air are similar. But I mean, if he can run, that could be an issue for Missouri, because like we said, they can't stop the run. And when you can involve the quarterback in the run game, it just makes it more confusing for the defense, has more players they have to account for. And Mizzou hasn't faced a lot of rushing threats at quarterback this season, but has been susceptible. Kentucky's Will Levis picked up several big first downs on the ground. And then I mentioned Southeast Missouri, they had a running quarterback who accounted for a good bit of their yardage. So yeah, I think that's definitely something to watch. Other than that, like I'm not going to say I know that much about Vandy's specific personnel.
Just go ahead and admit it right up front. Mitch, I want to go to predictions now. And Missouri in this game, they're a 16.5 point favorite. Over-unders at 62.5. So Vegas is looking at a lot of points in this one. Not sure about you, but I would hammer the over. I think we could see more points because I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of defense between these two teams. So what do you think is going to happen in Nashville tomorrow? Got a 3 Eastern time kick on the SEC network, Mizzou or Vandy?
Yeah, I definitely think there will be some points. I know there is some talk of rain in the forecast, but frankly, I don't think that should be. I mean, it's 2021. It's not like it messes up the fields, as long as, it's not like a monsoon or something. Like Vanderbilt should still be able to hand off and move the ball. Mizzou should be fine. Like, I think there will be a good number of points scored. I kind of go both ways around the spread. Like, Mizzou actually has not covered the spread since beating Vanderbilt last year. They have failed to cover in 10 consecutive games. But I've kind of decided, partially as a joke, but also this is also backing up my pick, that Vanderbilt's going to be the exception that proves the rule that Mizzou can't prove the spread. Like, they can cover against Vandy, but no other teams. So I right now I have a preview story, up on our site that says I think I picked Mizzou 41-20.
Gotcha. 41-20. That's Mitchell's pick, and I'll be revealing mine a little bit later in this podcast. But Mitch, thanks for taking the time. Enjoy the trip to Nashville if you're making it. You coming down to Nashville?
I'm not actually, no. Was planning on it, but with the post-game media just being on Zoom, I can do that from here. So
Right.
It didn't really feel like it was worth the money.
Got your TV right in front of you too, I'm sure. So you'll be fine. Mitch, thanks for coming on, and again, enjoy your coverage this weekend.
Thank you.